You're listening to episode 55 of 1 minute and 43 seconds, a true Unsolved Mysteries podcast. Some of the subject matter in this episode may be difficult to hear for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Well, hello. Welcome to 1 minute and 43 seconds, a true Unsolved Mysteries podcast. Today is a special episode, and do you know why? It's because, one, I have a very special guest. Erin, why don't you tell everyone how you know me?
Hi, everyone. My name's Erin. I have had the pleasure of being Megan's sister for 30 years.
Yay! I know, I've been looking forward to this because we've been talking about doing this for a while and we're finally doing it, so that's awesome. I'm excited about this. And the second thing that is really special about this episode is this is the oldest case I've ever done on the podcast.
Wow.
Previously, I did a case, Edward and Stefania Andrews. That case was from 1970, but this one's going 9 years earlier because we're going to 1961. So I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. I like older cases.
Why?
No, it's just interesting how, like, the investigation and things were obviously different back then than what we have available to us now. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how people lived back then.
Yeah.
There's definitely there's interesting things about both things because it's also interesting when it's like a newer case and then it's like there's all this technology and there's all these
Right.
this trail, but it's still so mysterious. But yeah, this is definitely, and because the case is older, some of the details are still murky.
Yeah.
So yeah, reports vary a little bit. But we're
Okay.
gonna do the best we can to sort through it.
Yes, we will.
All right. Okay, so today we're talking about the disappearance of Joan Risch. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start out and just kind of give some background about who she was before we get into the disappearance.
Sounds good.
All right. So Joan Carolyn Risch was born Joan Bard on May 12th, 1930 in Brooklyn, New York. And she faced early tragedy in her life when her parents died in a fire in 1939. So Joan was just 8 years old when her parents passed away. And she happened to be, so she was an only child, and she happened to be staying with her grandmother or something the weekend that it happened. Now, authorities said the fire was, quote, suspicious, but ultimately they ruled it as an accident because they couldn't figure out what happened. So that's kind of weird.
So that's why it was suspicious, just because they couldn't figure out what happened.
I couldn't really find a lot of details on why it was suspicious. If I do, I will put them in. But yeah, all I know is that they said it was suspicious, but then ultimately they ruled it as an accident.
Okay.
But either way, both her parents died in that fire. So then she went to live with her maternal aunt and uncle. And they eventually adopted her officially.
Okay.
And she took on their last name, Natris. And yeah, so she went from an only child to then she was one of 4 kids in the house.
Okay.
It didn't get much better for her after that because she had confided in someone that her uncle was sexually abusing her. So that was something she confided in to her. I'm not sure who it was, but yeah. Not great. But she went on to be really successful, actually. She pursued an education, and she graduated with a degree in English literature from Wilson College in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania in 1952. She then began a career in the publishing industry. She was working as a secretary, and then she advanced up to becoming an editorial assistant. In 1956, Joan's name would change again when she married Martin Risch, who was an executive at one of the publishing companies where she worked. And this was actually a blind date that was set up for her 2 years prior by a roommate of hers.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. And she, because of the situation at home, she never moved back home after she went to college. So she
Okay.
just stayed. And anyway, yeah. So one of her roommates set her up with this guy, and then she ended up marrying him in 1956. Okay. And she eventually left her job to become a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
Okay. So the couple settled in Ridgefield, Connecticut, and they welcomed two children, Lillian and David, into their lives. In April 1961, they moved to Old Bedford Road in Lincoln, Massachusetts, because of Martin's job, I guess, took them there. They became a part of that community. Um, and although she was a stay-at-home mom, Joan became involved in activities like the League of Women Voters, and Martin pursued his career in the paper industry. Let's now go ahead and get into the disappearance of Joan.
Okay.
Okay? So, October 24th, 1961, everyone always says, it started out as a normal day. It's like, no, like it always starts out as a normal day until
Right.
it's not.
Because it's, yeah, unexpected.
Right. Anyway, so October 24th, 1961, Joan's husband Martin had to leave for a business trip. He was going to New York for this business trip, and he was going to be staying the night in New York.
Okay.
Um, he had an 8 a.m. flight out of Boston, so he drove himself to the airport, and he was off. Okay? And like I said, since this case is 63 years old, some of the details are a little bit like sketchy or
Okay.
like not exact, I should say.
Okay.
Okay. So her first thing that day was she woke after her husband left. She woke up the children and served them breakfast. Her daughter had a dentist appointment that day. And so I guess Joan and her daughter were both had a dentist appointment.
Okay.
So she took her son, David, over to their neighbor's house. And this woman's name was Barbara Barker. So she drops David off with them, and then she leaves with Lillian to go to the dentist.
Okay.
After they go to the dentist, Joan and Lillian went shopping briefly to a department store. I think it was like Joan bought like a bra for herself and then like some clothes for her son, something like that.
Okay.
While they were out of the house, both the milkman and the mailman stopped by the house. And they both said nothing unusual was going on at the house at that time.
Okay.
Joan then goes back over to her neighbor's house, Barbara Barker, and brings the kids back home. And then that's around like 11:15 a.m. So shortly after that, um, someone came by the house to pick up Martin's dry cleaning. Um, and he actually went in the house to pick it up, and he said nothing unusual was going on either. Um, so after this, Joan changed out of like this formal um outfit she was wearing into something a little more casual,
Okay.
which was um a blue house dress with sneakers. I don't know what a house dress is, but whatever. Shortly after that, she made lunch for her kids. and then she put David into his room for his nap. I should say the age of the kids.
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna ask how old they were.
so David was born in 1959. No, wait. Oh, Lillian, I'm sorry. So Lillian is their first kid, the year after they got married. So Lillian's born in 1957. So she's 4 years old.
Okay.
And David is in 59, so he's two.
Okay.
Okay, so Lillian's four, David's two. She puts David down for his nap. It's said that David would nap until 2 p.m.
Okay.
Okay. So she puts him down for a nap. At 1 o'clock, Barbara Barker, the neighbor, brought her son, Douglas, over to play with Lillian because they were both 4 years old.
Okay.
While the kids were there, Joan was like doing some yard work, like she was pruning some plants and um like with some shears.
Yeah.
Shortly before 2 p.m., Joan comes out and she takes Douglas and her daughter, Lillian, back across the street to the Barker's house. And she just told the two kids that she'd be back. I guess they like there was like a swing set or something.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't say anything to Barbara Barker. She just drops the kids off and says, I'll be back.
Okay.
Lillian, let's see. Yeah, so they were playing on the swing set. What's going to follow now is a lot of weird sightings. Okay. So around 2:15, I guess the kids were inside. Yeah, I guess the kids and Barbara were inside. And Barbara says she looks out the window and she sees Joan wearing what looks like a trench coat. So she's wearing this over her clothing, and that she was moving very quickly up her driveway, and that she was carrying something red with outstretched arms. And at the time, Barbara thought she was maybe chasing her son around, like maybe her son was wearing something red and she was like chasing him or carrying him. But she said she saw her moving quickly, carrying something red.
That's weird. Is it like, I feel like if it were, I don't know, it's just weird because, like, if she were chasing her child, like, you would clearly be able to see, like, that's a living human thing. Or
Right.
was it like, was she carrying like red clothing or like, I don't know, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I agree. It's kind of like if it's a kid, how would you not see that it was a kid unless you're like physically holding the kid?
Yeah. I could see if they're like, oh yeah, she was carrying something that was red, but I couldn't tell what it was. But like to not know if it was like an object or like a running kid, like how
Yeah.
do you not? I don't know.
Well, it's clear that I guess it's clear that whatever she saw, it was really quick, like a really quick sighting, I
Yeah.
guess. Now some people reported seeing a unfamiliar car in Joan's driveway. It was like a dirty kind of blue thing. Again, I'm not really good with cars, but yeah, it was an unfamiliar car. And this was reported by Virginia Keene, who was the daughter of the Risches' next door neighbors. She was getting off the school bus at the time and saw this car. Um, Now is the part where it gets a little bit more sinister because um, Barbara's got the kids, right? Or has Lillian over at her house with her son. David's still with Joan or in his house.
Sleeping.
Yeah,
Okay.
unless it was him that she was carrying or chasing. Yes, he was
Yeah.
supposed to be taking his nap.
Okay.
Um, so at like 3:40, um, Barbara wants to go shopping with her kids, with her own kids. So she brings Lillian back over, and she kind of does something similar. She doesn't really talk to Joan. She just brings the kid back and is like, bye. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I wondered, I think that maybe this was more normal at the time, like where it was like kids can go here and there and it's like whatever. You don't
Yeah.
have to speak to the parent. I don't know.
It sounds like they probably had like a pretty fairly close relationship where they were probably back and forth between each other's houses a lot, is what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
If she's just like casually dropping her daughter off there and being like, be right back. It seems like they do that frequently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, okay. So it's 3:40 and Barbara leaves Lillian, takes Lillian into the house, and she believes Joan is still there, so she just leaves. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at 4:15 p.m., so a very short time later,
You said what, 340 or
3:40, so
and
20
then
to 4, is when she takes Lillian back over to her
okay,
house.
okay.
4:15, Lillian comes back to Barbara's house and says, Mommy is gone and the kitchen is covered with red paint.
Mm,
This
it's very
4-year-old.
sad.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
So Barbara goes back over with Lillian and then finds this crazy scene. Okay. Um, David is crying in his crib and he has a soiled diaper.
Oh,
And she ends up calling the police. So let's talk about what was found in the house. This is a photo, and I'll post this on Instagram as I do. This is a scene of the kitchen. So what you can see here is a trash bin that was normally located under the sink. That's where it was stored, was for some reason outside on the floor. You can see an unrolled. Now this looks like paper towel. It's actually drawing paper.
oh, interesting.
And that
Okay.
was, so you can see that's kind of on the floor, unraveled slightly. And then obviously this is blood smeared on the floor. Now, a few interesting things about the scene. The phone was ripped from the wall. It was one of those phones where you put, what is it, a rotary phone where you put your finger in the hole and like turn it like that? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
It was one of those phones that was ripped from the wall and set on the garbage can.
Oh, is that it in the garbage
It's
can?
hard to see in this picture, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Another thing that is interesting that couldn't be accounted for is Martin was later talked to about this, and in the garbage can, they found two empty bottles of liquor. One of the bottles, Martin said the two of them had drank, previously.
Yeah.
But there was also a carton of a case of beer, like an empty beer cans that he like could not account for
Like
in the
he didn't
trash.
know whose they were.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the blood. This is weird. The blood was found in a lot of places in the house. Okay? Um, Large smears were in the kitchen walls and floor, and there were some on the phone, which was, like I said, found in the garbage. Um, there were bloody fingerprints that did not belong to Joan or Martin or anyone that was known, basically.
Did they have like fingerprint analysis? I don't know if that's the proper way to
No, I
say
know
it
what you're saying.
at this time.
I think they did, and
Mhm.
they had. I think what they did was I've read that they had fingerprints of Jones on file from like her elementary school
Oh,
days,
interesting. Okay.
and it didn't. They were able to compare with that,
Yeah.
but there
Okay.
were. I mean, obviously, her and Martin's prints were found in the house, but the prints that they also found prints that were unidentified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So this blood is so weird because, like I said, it's in the kitchen. There was also blood found outside as well as up by the kid, like David. There was a drop that was found on the stairway. There were drops of blood found at the top of the stairs. 8 drops of blood were found in the master bedroom. And then there was one found near a window in the children's bedroom. And there was another trail of blood that led out from the kitchen into the driveway, which ended at Joan's car. This is weird, okay? They found blood in the right rear fender. It was also found on the left side of the hood near the windshield and the very center of the trunk.
Okay.
So, despite the fact that there's a lot of there's blood found in a lot of different places, after the investigators went in, they determined that um, it was only about a half a pint of blood. And that's kind of nasty to think about, especially for people like me who
Yeah.
faint at the sight of blood. But what I'm getting at is they didn't think like the amount of blood they found could have caused a fatal injury.
Yeah. Like it looked like there was more than there actually
Yeah, because
was.
it was like smeared all over.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. So that's the blood. Now we can talk about the sightings, I guess.
Okay.
So there were some sightings of Joan. Obviously, you can't determine if this was actually her, but some of it's pretty, I mean, who else would it be? Like it's pretty interesting. So one person said that at 2:45 that afternoon, a woman that was wearing clothing similar to what Risch had been last seen in, along with a kerchief that was tied around her head and her chin. They saw her walking on the north side of Route 2A, which kind of, I guess, intersected with Old Bedford Road, which is where their house was located.
Okay.
And the person said, like, this person seemed to be wandering and, like, not really knowing what they're going. Like, they didn't look like they had a purpose.
Yeah.
They were just kind of wandering.
Okay.
Okay. And they said that the woman was like hunched over as if she were cold. And she appeared, quote, untidy, whatever that means. So I guess like disheveled.
Yeah. Okay.
Another sighting was similarly dressed, right? And this was between 3:15 and 3:30. So half an hour to 45 minutes after the first sighting. This was another person.
The first sighting doesn't it seem a little early for what time did you say? 2:45 was the first one. So wouldn't that be kind of early for
Yeah,
the
let me
timeline?
Yeah, so I'm trying to see. Yeah, so let's go back. So it was shortly before 2 p.m. that Joan took the kids to the Barker's house.
Okay.
Or took Lillian and Lillian and Douglas, who was Barbara's son.
Okay.
So that was shortly before. Now, what is shortly before 2?
Right.
But then again, it's also around 2:15 that Barbara thinks she sees Joan moving quickly in the driveway carrying the red
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I guess it's possible then that whatever
2:45.
happened could have happened quickly.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, so the second sighting is, like I said, 30 minutes to 45 minutes later. This is on Route 128, but apparently this sighting, she was walking in the opposite direction.
Okay.
And this person said that the woman seemed disoriented and appeared to be cradling something at her stomach.
Okay.
And somebody also said it looked like blood was running down her legs. Despite all this, I find it crazy, but nobody stopped to help this woman.
Yeah, that's really sad because it sounds like she was in pain.
Yeah. So,
Especially back then, like I know like people would go hitchhiking a lot. Like it wasn't unusual to like stop for someone on the side of the road. Like today I could see someone being skeptical about doing that, but like that's
Right.
that's surprising.
I agree. So where do we go from here? There's a few more facts I got to get out before we talk about theories, I guess. Um, some other people, I guess, noticed this weird car in their driveway. It looked like a pair of David's clothing, like the baby's coveralls or whatever, was used to try to wipe up some of the blood. Obviously,
Hmm.
it the scene almost looks like it was described like it's like somebody quickly was trying to wipe
Yeah.
it before leaving.
Yeah, it seems like if it's, I don't know, it just seems like some whose ever blood it was or whatever happened, whoever had the blood on them, someone was like moving around like in a panic, like quickly. If it was, I feel like in that many different places, like there was some kind of like hustle, like panic. I don't know.
You know what else I find interesting about it though? So it's like smeared in the kitchen, but it's described as being like drops when it comes to the stairs and like in the kids' bedroom, it's drops. But in the kitchen, it's like all smeared and like on the walls, it's all smeared. So
Yeah.
it's just like what happened? Um, but also one thing the investigators also noticed, there was no footprints, no bloody footprints, which
Interesting.
I don't know. Because if there's that much blood and there's people in there, you would think like there'd be at least like a footprint or
Especially
something.
if they were like not careless, but like they obviously weren't trying to like hide the blood. So like you'd think if there was like they were clearly in a rush somehow, or like I said, like they were hustling around, maybe in a panic. Like it's surprising no one like stepped in blood
Right.
accidentally and left some kind of footprint.
Yeah, absolutely. And the police or investigators said whoever had been walking around in there had either been, quote, extremely careful or very fortunate.
Hmm,
So,
okay. Can they figure out whose blood it was? Were they able to do that?
so I'm not exactly sure if the specific technology existed back then to determine the exact person, but they found that the blood was type O, which is the same type that Joan had. But to be fair, type O is the most common
I
type.
was gonna say, isn't that the most common? Yeah.
I know,
Okay.
but like who else would it be?
I
I
don't
mean, it's
like if it's not hers,
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah,
it's
that
worth
does
talking
make the
about.
most sense, but yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about now Joan and her library records. Now, ever since Joan was young, like I said, she's highly educated, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was described as an avid reader.
Okay.
And when they moved, her house was like very close to the library, so she would go like twice a week to check out books and read. She read all sorts of books.
Okay.
Now, they did look over her library records and they found that she had taken out 25 books over the summer of 1961. Like I said, she went missing in October. Over the
Okay.
summer up through September, she had checked out 25 books. Um, Not all of them, but a lot of them had to do with missing persons cases or murdered people.
Okay.
One of them, and some of these books were even about people who had staged their own disappearances.
Interesting.
Now, a lot of people had said, well, like if you look at my book collection, I mean, I'd be screwed because people like me, I'm
Yeah.
into like I find it interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I would be interested to know, like, if you looked back, like it's okay. If you looked back like a couple years or like even a year, like, is she checking out things of that topic?
That's a really
Like,
good point.
was it just the summer? Like, if it was just that summer, then yeah, that would be strange. And I feel like also, I don't know, like, I feel like was true crime as like big back then as it is now? Like, I feel like true crime is like really popular and like, I don't know.
Yeah, everyone's hopping on the bandwagon these days
Yeah.
for the true crime. Um, yeah, I don't know. And they talked to her husband about this, and he
Mhm.
didn't even seem like he didn't seem alarmed by this. He's like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like her because she read a lot and she liked a lot of books, but she liked like suspense and like thrillers and like stuff
Yeah.
like that. But like so but people do find it interesting because some of these books were about like people that staged their own disappearances.
Yeah.
There was one I think somebody pointed out that was about a woman who went missing and only left behind a bloody towel or something like that, which is kind of eerie considering how her kitchen was
Yeah.
found.
Well, also, like, if she was gonna stage her own disappearance, why would she have left her baby at home and only taken one of her kids over to the neighbors? Like, I feel like if she cared enough about her child to like her one daughter to take her over to the neighbors, like, why would she, and she was staging her own disappearance, like, why would you leave your baby alone?
Okay, well yeah, so that's a good point. Let me tell you a couple more things and we'll go back to that.
Okay.
Okay? I just have a couple more things to go over. Now, this is interesting, and then we could talk about theories. So this is another thing that through my research that I found out. They found letters or something of that nature that where Joan had written, long story short, Joan confided in her mother, I guess, her adopted mother, that her stepfather had been sexually abusing her a week before she went missing,
Mm.
which opens up a whole new thing.
So she made her aunt or adopted mother, whatever, she made her aware that that happened. Like, that was the first time she shared that.
Yes,
Okay.
there were like I guess a series of letters about it. Um, so that is kind of curious, the timing of that.
Yeah.
But I figured that was worth noting. One more thing I'll say about the garbage can, there was also a hanger in there, which one of the theories in the case is that she had a like under the table abortion that went bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know if we're getting to theories yet, but
Yeah, we can. I
that's,
think we've reached, don't you think? I think I've
yeah,
laid everything out.
yeah,
Other than she's
that's,
never been seen again.
that's kind of my thing on it. And I thought before I heard this as a theory, like when I first heard this story, before I knew it was an existing theory and like hearing the details, I thought like, oh, I wonder if this was an abortion that turned out bad, because what I think could have happened is like she had planned for someone to come do this for her. I don't know if it was like a doctor or someone or how you did that back then, but had someone come and do it. It went wrong. She kept her son home because had thought like this could be done while he's sleeping. Like, her daughter's too old to be around for that. Like she would, she's old enough to, you wouldn't want to do that in front of a toddler. Um, and I think it went wrong, and the doctor didn't want to get in trouble, and she went to try to call someone for help, ripped the phone off the wall. She was bleeding, maybe panicking. And I think that would explain someone seeing her cradling her stomach while she was walking and potentially blood running down her legs. So I think that's a strong theory.
You are such a good guest, Erin. I'm so serious. That was
Oh,
so well said.
thank you.
No, really, you took the
Thank you.
words out of my mouth.
Thank
I
you.
think there's a lot of evidence in here that that supports that theory.
Yeah. Or like the alcohol, like
Exactly.
maybe she was trying to drink to like somehow, like I'm sure that would be painful to like in the hopes of like numbing the pain in some way, like numbing the physical pain. Like didn't people don't people do that? Like they will drink to try to, you know what I mean?
I
So,
do. That's
yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, there's a lot of ways you could go with that because it's like, God. It's like, did she try to call for help and somebody like ripped the phone away to prevent her from doing so? Do you think? I mean,
That's how I picture it. Like why else would the phone be ripped off the wall? Like it's like either like out of anger or like you're trying to stop someone from using it or it's an accident, but that seems like a pretty deliberate thing.
especially since the phone was found in the trash. That's
Yeah,
deliberate. Like, that's not
yes.
an accident.
Yeah,
I don't
I
think. I mean,
I think she was trying to call for help and whoever was there with her did that to stop her.
so do you think maybe if we're going with this theory, then do you think that this mystery person then disposed of her body somewhere? Because also you have to think about the sightings. And in that scenario, it's like obviously if she was alone, maybe like this guy or this person ripped the phone off the wall. It sounds like they ripped the phone off the wall, maybe, and then they fled the scene. Maybe like to get a head start, but then
Was her car there? Did her car?
her car was there, I
Okay.
believe.
So like wherever she went, she didn't. No one took her car.
No, I mean, no. I haven't found anything about, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know because it's like
because like would they like hope that I mean, did they leave her for dead? Did they think, or was their goal just to like get out of there and flee and like prevent her from calling for help? Because if she's spotted alone on this like highway walking,
yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't think that whoever was there killed her or like intentionally killed her.
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like it was a thing like they like let's say it was the abortion thing. They were doing it under the table, whatever.
Roe versus Wade was not passed yet. So abortion was very much frowned upon still.
Okay.
Or yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say it was the abortion thing. Like I feel like it happened like this. It let's say it was a doctor. Like they panicked, like, oh my God, this went wrong. Like I'm gonna get in trouble, whatever. Like, no, you can't call for help, ripping the phone off the wall. And then, like, she seems to maybe be panicking, trying to clean herself up, like, maybe trying to get to her son. And
Yeah.
this person may just have, like, left in a panic, knowing that she wasn't able to call for help. But, like, why wouldn't she take her car? Like, why would
Yeah.
she just go walk? Like, why wouldn't she take her car somewhere? Or like, I don't
Why
know.
not go to the Barkers? Because they're
Yeah.
friends. Why not go to a neighbor's house to call for help? Unless
That
she's ashamed. What if she's ashamed?
that I could see because like if it was frowned upon back then, like and she was trying to like if she wasn't even able to go get it done at a hospital and like she had to have it done under the table anyways, she may not have like wanted anyone to know.
And her husband is away on business,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Could could she even like there's no evidence of this, but could she have been having an affair and the baby wasn't even her husband's and then she doesn't want him to find out?
right.
Or it could be that she just doesn't want another kid and like her
Yeah,
husband's away and so it
yeah,
is very curious this goes down when her husband's not there. And
yeah.
I meant to say this earlier, but it's worth saying her husband was cleared by police. He was like they confirmed he got on the flight. They confirmed all of his like whereabouts that he was in New York City like all day. Like he's accounted for.
Okay. Okay.
So that's worth noting. And I agree with you. I think that theory is like honestly what I'm going with. But the two other main theories are, and we could talk about them briefly, I
Mhm.
guess, but it's like the other theory is that two, she was unhappy somehow and she staged her disappearance to start a new life.
Okay.
Given her things to support that, I guess you could say her library history.
Yeah.
And then the other theory is that she was abducted by someone who knew she was alone. But I don't like that because this happened in a very narrow window of time when she took her daughter over to the neighbors.
Yeah.
Like she just so happens to be abducted when her she takes her daughter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems too coincidental.
Right. And like yeah, like I think there was a reason she took her daughter away because she knew something that obviously no one else knew. Like I don't think it was like, oh, I'm just gonna run to the store. Like, like she knew there was something else. I think she knew there was something else
Hmm.
happening or she was waiting for someone.
Yep. And then that also explains the car,
Yeah,
the weird car they saw.
yeah. It still doesn't explain the sightings of her though, because like if you're staging your own disappearance, why are you walking on the side of the road like making yourself like letting people see you, especially like if she did have blood running down her legs, like why, like if you're trying to be inconspicuous, like why would that happen?
Yeah, you got her past, which is she's got some tragedy and some darker things in her past, which a lot of people wonder if it's related somehow to her disappearance.
Yeah.
Like maybe she like that's one thing that people use to support the theory that maybe she staged her disappearance, that she was unhappy with her life. Because some people said also that she, she got an education and she had a job she really enjoyed, and then she had to give that up to be a stay-at-home mom. Maybe she
Yeah.
found it unfulfilling.
Yeah,
So
I could see that.
did she stage it? That's
Yeah, I just, yeah, it's hard for me to see, like, I don't know. I can totally see why she would feel unfulfilled. It's hard for me to relate to leaving your kids like that.
yeah, and it's important to note also that the dentist um said that nothing seemed amiss with her. She seemed happy, she seemed fine. And then a friend of hers said that she seemed very content as a suburban housewife.
Okay.
Like she was active in her community. Like she was friendly, but you never know, I guess, what someone's feeling.
Right.
So, um, and then yeah, there was one, let's see. There was a possible suspect, by the way, but it was a dead end. Um, Basically like Jones and Martin's neighborhood, the government wanted to buy the land to like they wanted basically to open like a park or something, like a national park. And so basically what it was going to be was like the government was had people that were going door to door to like see if these homes like what like the worth I guess would be of these homes. So there's this guy Robert Foster because I guess some neighbors thought he was a little suspicious. Okay, so some of the women that this guy Robert Foster talked to got a little too friendly or quote overstayed his welcome. Whatever
Okay.
that means, like I guess he was what, like hitting on the girls. Um and they found through records that this guy had visited Joan a month prior to her disappearance in September.
Okay.
Like they verified that he has an alibi and everything for,
Yeah.
but that was just
Okay.
one thing they considered because I guess some of the women were like kind of being like, the
Like he was,
1961 equivalent of that guy's a little bit creepy.
yeah, he was, yeah, okay.
So that could lend itself to the abduction theory.
Yeah,
But I do still believe this. In my head, the order is abortion, most likely,
yeah,
then the staging, then abduction. In my mind, because I'm thinking about she takes her daughter over to the neighbor's house.
yeah,
You don't do that. Like it's too coincidental for the abduction theory for me.
yeah,
It's more in line with the she's got this guy coming to do this abortion or she's
yeah,
staging her disappearance so she brings I don't know.
yeah. It's like though, if it was the abortion thing, like what happened? Like, I don't know, like, did she just like fall somewhere and die? Like, and no one ever found her? Like, that's doesn't make really much sense either. If there was no foul play, like, how hasn't she been found? So that makes me wonder, like, did something happen? Or like maybe while she was walking down the street or whatever, someone did pick her up and then I don't know, and then she died or I don't know.
There there were there was construction in the area. So some people theorized maybe she, because all of the sightings of her, they reported somebody that was disoriented, kind of. And if she's
Yeah,
bleeding,
yeah,
she could have succumbed to her injuries, like just dropped, and then was like accidentally um buried by construction or something like that.
yeah. That still seems very like I don't know. Like what are the odds that you fall like it would have you'd have to like this sounds
Go ahead.
bad, but like you'd have to like lay down and die in like the right place for no one to see you on even on a construction site. Like,
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. So I guess just to, I mean, do you have any other thoughts? Because I'll close it up with, so the detective that was working on this case, he he told reporters that the case was, quote, sort of a stone around his neck. So I guess something that weighed heavily on him.
okay,
He died, the detective that was investigating died in 2009.
okay,
Now, Martin, who was Joan's husband, he was kind of quiet about the case. He never really spoke about it. But he did one time, and he thinks he believed that his wife was still alive. And he thought that perhaps she had a psychological break or amnesia and forgot how to return home. Now, she didn't have a history of mental illness at all. And same with people in her family. Like there was no known mental illness. But so it's interesting. I don't know if that's like him holding out hope or what it is, but
Yeah.
he
I
did.
mean, with considering all that she has been through, she definitely could have had some like underlying things that maybe he didn't know about or knew no one knew about. And also too, like this was the 60s and she was a woman. So I think there were a lot of expectations that she was probably living up to that she was maybe I don't know, and I don't mean this to sound like bad against him, but like there could have been a lot he didn't know that she was dealing with.
That's 100% true. Um, but Martin, um, he did go on to remarry,
Okay.
and he never he never declared his wife legally dead. He never
Mm,
declared Joan legally dead.
okay.
And like the detective, Martin also passed away in 2009.
Oh wow, okay.
So,
Do we know about her kids?
I heard something about this is kind of interesting. Uh, as I don't know much about where her kids are, but I do know that I think I'd have to look it up. I heard something about her son, David. He was in he had some issues, I think. Let's see. Here
Oh,
it is.
2017.
Yeah, so he was last, yeah, so this was, yeah, so he was in a nursing home and he was like he's 58 years old in 2017. And he
Oh,
was reported missing briefly because I guess he walked away from his nursing home, but they
okay.
found him a short time later. And it says under his notes, needs medication, serious memory impairment.
Okay.
So he had some issues, but yeah,
Oh, that's sad.
it is sad, but it's also kind of crazy. Like he went missing and his
Yeah.
mother
Yeah.
and I'm not sure about her daughter,
Okay.
what's going on with her, but that's her son. So, and you know what, Erin, that's all I really got on this. That's just what I know. I mean,
That's too bad.
I
That one
know.
bothers me. I want to know what happens.
I want to know what happened to all these, and that's why I do this podcast because it's so intriguing to think about what could have happened to this woman. But like I said, so she would be 94 today if she were still living, which
Yeah.
is there a chance she's still living? Highly doubt it. It's,
Yeah. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's not likely,
yeah.
in my opinion.
I think she probably succumbed to whatever happened to her that day. And just for whatever reason, her body has not been
Yeah.
located because either she died in some hidden or rural or, you know, what am I looking for? Like obscure area where she wasn't found.
Yeah. I'm
Or
wondering, did they have like search parties for her or?
they did search. They did search for her and nothing came of it.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it is. But a lot of people focus on her library history. They think that's like some,
Yeah, I really want to know like if we look farther back if there's other stuff like that. But I guess like even if there was like it's something even if there was and she was planning a disappearance, like she could have been doing it for a long like planning it for a long time. I don't know.
somebody on Reddit commented on a thread about her disappearance. The user Amador9 said in the early 60s before Roe v. Wade, a friend of mine's mother died from a botched abortion. She was fine for a while, then started hemorrhaging after she got home. Her husband wanted to take her to the hospital, but the abortionist convinced her to wait for him to pick her up so he could take care of her. Her body was found dumped the next day.
Yeah, I think that that's a pretty strong theory. I just can't get past the sightings of her walking. Unless
Unless it
maybe,
wasn't her. But what are the chances?
right, unless maybe she tried to like go off on her own to get help, and whoever this person was that did the abortion convinced her to go with them
But
and
you don't
picked
think
her up or something.
that could be, but also like do you not like the possibility of her, or do you think it's just like too coincidental that she would die on her own and then her body would somehow be concealed?
I think that's possible, but when you say concealed, do you mean like purposely concealed by like a person
No,
or
like I mean by just by happenstance that she wandered somewhere, like somebody else says on here, because was she delirious from blood loss, and she passed out or died in an area that was like in the woods or something, for example, or like in some ravine where she was something concealed her remains on accident.
yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely possible that like she did succumb to her injuries and die, but like I feel like the chances of that happening and then her not being found are slim. Like if you're like I don't know. I know it's different, but like picture yourself like walking down the bike trail and if you just fall and die, someone's gonna find you.
Well,
I
on the
feel like
bike trail, yeah.
well, like in even like even like that sounds stupid, but I just
It's
feel
not
like it's
stupid.
hard. It would be hard. Like
Yeah, I get
you'd
it.
have to be like trying to like hide. I don't know. You'd have
No,
to
I
be
get it. I get it.
like I don't know. She'd have to like knowingly be trying to like wander off into a
Secluded.
secluded place.
Yeah, I hear you. How about this? What if somebody came by, they did the abortion, and then that person left, and it was after, like this person said that their friend's mom or whatever, like the doctor did it and then left,
Mhm.
and then she was fine, but then she started hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
So what if that happened? What if the person had already left that did the abortion? She's by herself, starts to experience this. She tries to call for help. She leans on the phone and it comes off the wall because she's trying to support herself, right? So she's like going
Yeah.
to the wall to get the phone and then she just, like falls and she
Yeah.
grabs it. Like that's
But
something.
why is it in the garbage?
That's a
Yeah.
point. That's a good point. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's a crazy case.
Yeah, it is. I think there's a couple possible different ways it could have transpired, but
I mean, we could talk about it for hours, but I think we pretty much, I don't know. I think we pretty much covered the theories. We covered all the facts that I could find.
yeah,
It's sad.
it's
It is really sad on a lot of levels.
yeah, I feel bad for her kids.
I feel bad for her kids, and I feel bad for Martin too,
Yeah, me too.
especially since he seemed to believe she was still out there.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
I wonder if he maybe like if something in their like the way their relationship was or the way it was going led him like something of that led him to believe that she could still be out there.
Yeah.
like led him to believe that it was staged and she left on her own, which only he probably would know that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think this one's getting solved though.
Never say never.
Well, I hope obviously, but okay. Well, Erin, thank you for being here. I'm really glad we got to do this episode. I think it turned out really well.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Will you be on again?
I think I can do that.
Okay, good. Well, as always, catch me on social media at 143 Mysteries, at 143 Podcast on Twitter. And we'll see you for the next one.
Okay, thanks.
One minute and 43 seconds is dedicated to my number one fan. Thanks, Dad. I love you and I miss you. This podcast has been approved by Skipper the Cat. Right, Skippy?